Major funding for this program is made possible by grants from Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, and Perfect Building Maintenance, New York Community Bank, Kilroy Architectural Windows, Inc., New York's window company, Capital One Bank, Greenberg Traurig, LLP. Additional funding for this program is made possible by grants from AVR Realty Company, LLC, Briarwood Organization, Beechwood Organization, C.B. Richard Ellis, Cushman & Wakefield, Dime Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Hal Fettner, Durst Fettner Residential, First American Title Insurance Company of New York, F.J. Siami Construction, Friedman LLP, Gemini Real Estate Advisors LLC, Investors Savings Bank, Jack Jaffa and Associates Real Estate Consultants, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, Madison Realty Capital, Massey Knackel Realty Services, M&T Bank, Marcus and Millichap Real Estate Investment Services, Meridian Capital Group, The Moynihan Group, Margolin Weiner and Evans LLP, Newmark Knight Frank, Orphanides and Associates, SJP Properties, Sterling and Sterling Inc., Stonehenge Partners, Urban American, The Wickoff Group.
Hello, my name is Michael Stoller. You know, there's one borough in the city of New York that I'm very biased. I was born there, I grew up there, I still love going there. It's Brooklyn. And Brooklyn, you know, I did a show a couple of months ago with Shelley Fireman of the Brooklyn Diner, and I said, why do you create something called the Diner? He says, do you think I'd call it the Bronx Diner? It's the Brooklyn Diner. So today I brought people together to talk on what's happening in Brooklyn. There's no one better to talk about what's happening in Brooklyn than my first guest, the Honorable
The
Honorable Borough President of Brooklyn, our good friend Marty Markowitz.
Thank you. Get some gray hair. I'm honorable now, but go ahead.
That's right. Do you know? Wait, do you have your Social Security card now?
More than that, I'm a member of the Medicare Club.
You're in the Medicare Club.
Most exclusive club in America. Go ahead.
Much younger than you, sitting over there, a frequent guest. The principal of the Hudson Company is David Kramer. Around the other side, our friend, the Senior Vice President for Development at Avalon Bay Communities, Fred Harris. And last but not least, another man born in Brooklyn, groomed in Brooklyn, the chairman of Levine Builders and Douglaston Development, Jeffrey Levine.
But if I can just correct Marty, under the new health care policy,
Oh, no.
Medicare is not going to be so exclusive anymore.
All right, okay.
Okay.
All right.
You know what?
Marty's the Barack Obama of Brooklyn.
I
So
believe of
hands
national. I'm
off.
a great believer in national health care.
In your life, have you ever left Brooklyn? I mean, I think you were born in Brooklyn, you worked in Brooklyn, you bought a house in Brooklyn
My
finally.
honeymoon. I went to Florida.
She let you go.
She let-
Okay, but that's a subsidiary of Brooklyn.
Who's in
okay?
charge of Brooklyn when Marty goes to Florida? That's what I
Oh
want to know.
my goodness, my deputy borough president, Yvonne Graham, and my chief of staff, Carlos Shasora.
So what's happening in Brooklyn, Marty?
Oh, very exciting, even though we're obviously going through a severe recession and unemployment numbers are still way too high, way too high. It's really impacted Brooklyn significantly, and some of our retail corridors. I'm not happy about the vacancies that I see in many of our commercial areas. Not happy about that at all. However, having said that, folks are still coming from all over the country choosing to live in Brooklyn as their first choice. The exodus out of Manhattan continues in many of our neighborhoods in Brooklyn. I'm happy to say, at least from my discussions with developers across the borough, that while I'm not saying it's an avalanche in terms of every space is being occupied, it is taking longer, but there is some modest uptick, and great development is occurring. Let's go Brooklyn Nets. That'll happen in 2 years. Only took close to 7 years to get through the agita.
Wait a second.
To get through the agita.
Now, the
Listen,
guy
the
who,
LeBron sweepstakes is looking good after last night.
now, are they going to have the guy who bought the Nets that they just approved?
The Russian gentleman.
The Russian gentleman. Is he going to go to Brighton Beach? Are they going to have an events in Brighton Beach also?
Well, all I can tell you is that he'll be coming into Brooklyn soon, and I'm going to have a reception in his honor for the Russian-American community in Brooklyn. So that'll be a good thing. But I think it's a good thing. It means that the development with the new arena, the housing that over the course of years that'll be built, that excitement, the excitement around the Gowanus, even though it's now Superfund designation, I really believe that we'll continue the development and cleanup of that area, which will be a positive thing. Coney Island development, which I'm very, very excited about, and I can name other places throughout the borough. So I feel very strong that the future of Brooklyn is looking superb.
So now we're going to take, there's one guy, a REIT, this real estate investment trust, who went into Brooklyn. How many years is Avalon Bay in Brooklyn now?
We would now be in Brooklyn, I guess, for 5 years.
And you opened up this building. So why don't you tell us what's happening in downtown Brooklyn? I mean, you're one of, as we said, about 2,000 new rental buildings.
2,000 units.
2,000 units in Brooklyn. How do you see it? How does Avalon Bay see it? And how's rentals taking? What's happening over there?
Well, we felt at the time we made the decision to invest that Brooklyn was becoming a preferred destination for the people that we're looking for, which are basically market rate renters in a few major groups, mostly relatively young, mostly sort of employed in relatively well-paying industries. They really wanted to be in Brooklyn because that's where their lives were centering, their non-work lives were centering. Avalon Fort Greene is the largest single investment in a building that Avalon Bay ever made. It's in excess of $300 million. There is no mortgage on the building. It was built off the company's balance sheet. Wow. The building is 631 total apartments. They're about a little over half leased. Almost the occupancy is going along right behind that. I think the thing that surprised us, certainly the fundamentals couldn't have looked grimmer when as we were coming to market. I mean, people were very, very worried. And I think that what surprised us right from the get-go was the absorption that downtown Brooklyn was capable of. We really came on the market, all the buildings almost at the same time. And when you think about it, I mean, we're leasing 10 apartments a week, similar rates at the others. So it's as if downtown Brooklyn is absorbing a 200 apartment building every month. I mean, that's incredible, and that's now been going on steadily. And there's no,
but who's renting? You said, now, where were these people before? Were they in Manhattan? Were in New Jersey? Or, did they just migrate here, from college? What's the profile
overwhelmingly from other places in New York City, and a much higher proportion than we initially expected from other places in Brooklyn. But I think that, Avalon has a little bit of branding, and we get a fair amount of, when people come into New York, when they get transferred here or move here from other places that are also Avalon markets, of which are just a handful, they'll frequently look for whatever we have in lease up, because that, we always have, renting in a building when it's undergoing lease up is always more advantageous, and in the last few months it was probably especially advantageous.
Now let's talk to the man who's really, the Brooklyn Roundtable, on the Brooklyn Navy Yard board, on the Brooklyn Park,
Brooklyn Bridge Park Conservancy. I'm worried by this. I'm worried by this intro.
And you live there, you work there, and you develop.
And I play there.
I know you play there. Now, what are you seeing over there? I mean, you got a lot of developments over there besides having something in Roosevelt Island, which is Manhattan, but we won't hold it against
I mean, two follow-ups to what Fred was saying. One is that sort of as a bystander watching downtown Brooklyn, I think it's great the absorption we've been seeing, because I was concerned that it was going to be a big vacancy problem, and it was going to drag down the whole rental market. And the fact that downtown Brooklyn is seeing the demand is great, market wide. And then the other issue is that Brooklyn is now on its second or third generation of residents. So when you have a project like Third and Bond, which I'm doing in Carroll Gardens, 80% of our people who come to our open houses can walk there. It's from adjacent neighborhoods, not from Manhattan.
What else are you doing? Bushwick.
We have 6 projects in Brooklyn right now. So there is the Nick in Bushwick, and our website is rubushwick.com.
This is not an advertorial. Get to the next.
We have Cobble Hill Tower, which is a conversion of a rental building to condominium use, 188 units. And then we have 3 affordable projects. In East New York, we have the Dumont with financing from the Borough President's Office. City Point, we're doing some affordable housing in the City Point project in downtown Brooklyn, and Gateway, which is another affordable project we're doing with Related in East New York.
You know, we talk about Gateway, which Jeff was trying to do something right nearby in Queens, but we won't get to that. But Gateway has been really a great project, I mean, because of the Gateway retail, Marty. I mean, you have it's one of the most successful retail next to downtown Brooklyn.
Plus, it'll be growing.
And it's phase 2
next
now.
phase, right.
So it's, phase 2 of retail, and there's single-family home development, and we're doing mid-rise, plank construction, affordable rentals. And we're doing 4 buildings that we're going to close on in the fall.
Mr. Williamsburg, which you're too old to live in Williamsburg, right?
My father was born and raised in Williamsburg on Whipple Street. As you know, I was born and raised in Brooklyn over at the Linden houses adjacent to the Gateway project, NYCHA project, before we moved to Queens, which Marty never forgives me for.
Wow.
He'll forgive you. Let's talk about what's happening in Williamsburg. I mean, I was in Williamsburg maybe 6 weeks ago. I took the L train. It was so convenient. It took me no time at all. I got off on Bedford. I couldn't believe what I saw on Bedford Avenue.
I thought you said this wasn't going to be an advertorial.
No, I happen to like it. But the problem was I like getting off the L train. Your project is a little too far, but I like walking, so it's good.
A little too far is a very random expression. The reality is, as you know, the L train, which, by the way, can have you into 14th Street and 2nd Avenue in about 6 minutes at worst, is on North 7th and Bedford, which is just 3 blocks from the edge.
3 long blocks.
Oh, this is tough.
It's good for you to walk. It's healthy.
Right, that's the
But the truth of the matter is, it's 3 very vibrant blocks. Choose your adjectives more carefully. The reality is North 6th Street,
This is a
which
tough
is the
crowd today.
east-west spine of the hip north side of Williamsburg, is filled with galleries, cafes, restaurants.
You name it.
To make a plug for a restaurant, C, which is the Asian fusion
You
restaurant.
spoke about that the last time.
It
I don't
does
want to
12
get a
but
plug.
it does 1,200 dinners, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, every night.
It's amazing.
It appeals to the young people, the children of us boomers, and I'll include you in the boomers, kindly I will. The boomers' children, the echo boom, Generation X and Y, this is, as Fred said, the destination of choice for young people in Brooklyn. They're not moving to Brooklyn like Chicago, a second city. They are coming to Brooklyn because it has the neighborhood amenities, the galleries, the restaurants, the cafes, the cheese shops, the wine shops, the beer shops, the dine affair for burgers and fries, the Asian fusion. It has what they want.
When are we going to have a Whole Foods?
We bought Third and Bond in
Sure,
anticipation of
of course.
having the first Whole Foods in Brooklyn a block and a half away, and we're doing well there despite not having a Whole Foods, or they've done their environmental remediation.
But
They
you know,
want to come to Brooklyn. They want to be in Brooklyn. I don't know. That property of theirs has been a challenge.
But, I mean, there are certain things, and I agree. Williamsburg is fine, but you are lacking that big supermarket. It's like Long Island City. I mean, you lack certain big amenities that you need. You can have a CVS, which will have a couple of things over there, but you need more than
At
just the CVS.
13,000 square feet, CVS, who incidentally we just signed at the edge in Williamsburg, has a few more than a few things in 13,000 square feet of display.
I'm not questioning that, but I think that the supermarket wouldn't hurt. I mean, there are certain other amenities. Now, there have been a large number of hotels in various stages of development. I happened to be yesterday at a meeting, and I ran into a banker who said to me, I'm thinking of financing a 67-room hotel right near you at the edge. He said, what's your thought? I said, I think Williamsburg could absorb 1 hotel. I'm not sure about. And Marty, here's the situation. Downtown Brooklyn, I mean, it took 50 years before Josh Muss put the first real hotel, the Marriott. Now you have a number of new hotels over there.
Coming up.
Some of them I think might do well.
I think they will do well. I mean, I think it's a different product for different markets. In fact, my former chief of staff works for the V3 hotels, and I know that's another one that'll be coming up, Hotel Indigo, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's what it's going to be called. They see a great market here, and I believe that. Growing businesses that need hotel rooms in Brooklyn, more conventions that we're getting, and it's true, tourism naturally, and people visiting family in Brooklyn and needing a place to stay. So I think it's a strong market. And when the Nets get here, don't forget that, loads of people. It's going to attract unbelievable numbers into the borough, not only for the Nets games, but also for the regular major concerts and everything else that'll happen there. And when you add in Brooklyn Bridge Park, and David touched on it, but the truth of the matter is, it's already an unbelievable
Right, I think
park.
they just signed 4
unbelievable.
restaurants.
Couple restaurants, wine bar.
And there's going to be a hotel at the edge of the park. You know, I think I'm skeptical, as a lot of us are, about the number of hotel units that are being added to the borough. But we had the guy from the new hotel at the Brooklyn Round Table recently. NU. And, you know, my questions were, okay, so you're across from the jail. You have a bail bondsman in the ground floor that, you know, Shia was nice enough to lease adjacent to the new hotel.
That's inside baseball.
You're on Atlantic Avenue. You got bail bonds in the retail. And you know, how are you doing? And, you know, his answer was that we're at 70% occupancy. We're exceeding expectations. And I went and saw the hotel, and it's nice. And
Unfortunately, 70% occupancy is not going to keep a hotel
But
alive in
can I tell you
today's
something
world.
else, Marty? Something which you always catch everything, but the reality is one of the things that I'm seeing in Williamsburg for the first time, tourism.
Yes.
I am seeing
Yes.
international visitors to Manhattan
Yes.
jumping on the L
question.
train
No
and
question.
coming to spend the day for the vintage clothing opportunities and the retail opportunities that are unique to
And
Williamsburg.
people watching. Don't forget
I mean,
people watching.
You know, I mean, the New Yorker had a like a 5-page article on shopping in Fort Greene. I mean, this
That's
is
right,
really, it's the people that, you know, that all these businesses. I mean, apartment building is a pretty staid business, but you know, hotels really have to be. You know, they have to kind of say where the demographics going, where are the psychodemographics
I mean, look,
going. And
in Brooklyn,
got
for
such
a hotel,
high
it's either
appeal.
downtown Brooklyn or maybe Williamsburg and maybe 1 or 2. You know,
If you were to look at the demographics,
I remember, I grew up
help
over
me,
there.
Help me. The population of Brooklyn has what? 2 and
2.5
3/4?
million.
It'll be close to 2.6.
2.6. Okay. As cities go in the United States,
It's the fourth largest, still
fourth
bigger than Houston.
largest city in the United States. And if you were to do the statistics on the number of rooms per person, it's well underserved. And the same thing applies to your surprise at renting up so well. While I understand 2,000 units in a community being presented at the same time may sound like a lot, but in a borough or a city of 2.6 million people, it's nothing.
Right, which is why it's shocking that you have a 2.6 million person city, and there's no Apple store and no Whole Foods.
Oh, the Apple Store, listen to me. Hey, listen, I've done everything so far. And I even but not only did I make a video pitching Brooklyn to Mr. Jobs, but now what I've done is I'm going to visit him.
Was it a music video? Was it a music video?
It was not
You
a
could
music
sell it
video.
on iTunes.
We could do the music.
But the truth
I'm
of the
on
matter
iTunes.
is,
You can-
I have
Stoller
written
Report's on
letters.
iTunes.
I have met with their real estate people, and I know they've looked at.
They have looked.
But
They've been there
whatever the
repeatedly.
case, I know they want to be in Brooklyn. I don't know what's
Can I
stopping
make a
them.
plea?
I don't
Apple,
understand.
come to Williamsburg.
I don't understand.
And Apple, it should be in Brooklyn.
I'm going to
And-
Cupertino,
okay.
California. I'm going to go visit
Wait a
him.
second, back
Hello,
and
Steve
forth.
Jobs.
Now, wait, let's talk about downtown Brooklyn. Part of the problem, I mean, you do have a Trader Joe's,
Yeah,
but I
we
think
do.
you need
And
some more-
Barney's is coming. Barney's is coming. That's a big thing.
The great thing about rental housing development, and in a way, Brooklyn led the first big new residential buildings were actually in downtown, were for sale. The wonderful thing about rental is people, you know, and this lease up shows it in this environment, is that people, you know, the level of commitment you need to make a rental is for a lease term. And market rate rentals, you know, may be surprised all over the country and even in New York, turn over at a pretty high rate, you know, 40, 50% a year, you know, leave. And so the way to really transform a neighborhood is a lot of market rate rental housing, because those are people who are at a stage in their life where they're paying a fair amount for rent, they've got pretty high incomes, and they're spending a lot right near where they live. I mean, you know, almost by definition, if you're renting in a new building in New York City, you're willing to spend a fair amount on rent. And you know, I don't know that anyone's ever studied this in great detail, but I can see it from every place that we built, that in terms of, you know, sort of neighborhood revitalization per pound, you know, there is nothing like market rate rental housing. I mean, nobody speculates
so why
by
doesn't
renting an
Avalon
apartment.
Bay, I mean, the next largest area in Brooklyn, as Marty and I were saying, is Coney Island. Why don't you maybe look at Coney Island? I mean, it's a great location, water, you know.
Right. For
You
certain
got
markets.
cyclones. It's a
Let me just tell you, I got to tell you, a little trend we have going down there. Some of the new buildings, apparently, it's people's second home, not their first home. They use it, increase. I know it sounds crazy. Rather than taking a 3-hour ride out to the Hamptons on a Friday late afternoon, they hop a subway or whatever, and bingo, they got the beaches and the boardwalk. I know it sounds crazy, but little uptick on people's
go
second,
to Brighton.
second
Basically,
home.
you're talking
Second
about,
home.
No, wait, it's what people do. You know, I don't want to
like
give.
at the turn of
I don't
this
want to.
last
I don't want to
century.
give Long Beach a hit, but people do go out to Long Beach as opposed to taking the trip out to the beach. It's
Out to the
45.
Well,
it's
the
45
trip,
minutes
speaking
away.
of Long Beach,
Well,
you
no.
have the Long Island Railroad. The key to the development of Coney Island and Rockaway, for that matter, is transportation and commutation. The city,
There
the
is a
state,
train.
I understand it
There's a
needs
number
to
of
be
trains.
improved. Let's not demean that train. It's the A train, I believe.
No, it's the
Not
D
there.
train.
The D train.
Well, for Coney Island,
Yes.
it's the A for the
You probably would
Rockaways.
need a lot more express buses and all that to be able to move
I-
people
you know,
in
But
and out quickly.
public transportation is the key to the evolution.
Well, look
of
at
Coney Island
Long
Rockaway.
Beach. Long Beach is a perfect example. Basically, the highest rents on Long Island. It has a Long Island Railroad service, which just manages to be fast enough to change the perception of where that is. It's farther away than Coney Island.
And it's got Avalon Towers, which I built before you were in
Right,
Avalon.
before we bought it. and really these it's all about, it really is about the perception that people form in their minds that's based on travel time.
What else is going on in Brooklyn? I mean, we hear about a lot of in downtown Brooklyn, Williamsburg, Cobble Hill, Bushwick. Coney Island's a little slow, partially due to transportation and partially due to the lack of money out there by banks. What else are we seeing?
Well, we got
Marty?
other areas. I mean, Victorian Flatbush is very strong, very strong.
What's going to happen with
young
the Lois
homeowners?
Kings, where I graduated from high school?
I'm happy to tell you, listen, not only did I graduate from there, my first date was there.
Did you go to Jan's?
Of course. We all went to Jan's, of course. But the Lois Kings has been empty since 1977. And as a state senator, I prevented the city from demolishing it. And as borough president, I prevented them from demolishing it. They wanted to build a little mini mall there, whatever. I'm happy to say that we have all the money now, all assembled, and a company has been selected, AEG, that will be developing the Lois Kings, restoring it to the grandeur that it initially built in the 1927, and it will become sort of a combination Beacon and Apollo Theater for Brooklyn, USA. It'll have about 3,200 seats. It'll be a tremendous asset for the borough because, believe it or not, in Brooklyn, and this is something I know 100%, the largest indoor space in Brooklyn, other than Christian Cultural Center and the Brooklyn Tabernacle downtown, which can't be used for public purposes, is Brooklyn College, and the seating is only 2,300 seats.
Now, speaking
only
of-
2,300
now,
seats.
The interesting thing about
BAM
Brooklyn
is
College
2,000 seats.
is in a couple of months, the first dormitory is going to be completed 2 blocks from Brooklyn College.
CUNY hasn't been in the dormitory business.
This is not CUNY. This
ever.
is a private developer, which happened to be financed through my company. A dormitory, 2 blocks away. It's a great location. There's a dire need. People need dormitories.
And it's completely off the balance sheet of Brooklyn College?
It's not on Brooklyn College.
But you got to look at the other things. The fact that NYU announced that they want to have a presence of Brooklyn of over 1 million square feet.
Yeah, because
with
they
their
took
anchor
over
at
Poly.
This is a great, Brooklyn already has more college students than Cambridge, downtown Brooklyn, by the way. But this is a great, great opportunity for Brooklyn moving ahead. It really is for jobs, for housing, and that's why where you are, and where you are, I think both of you, and David, of course, he knows, of course, but where you are, with BAM increasing its size. Just the other day, we opened up the Fisher Building. I'm just saying, I'm sorry, the groundbreaking. Your area, people walking over there, they got everything at their within a few moments away
Now,
from them.
isn't there
And
the
where
case-
you are, it's the,
Wait,
I
and
don't
we
have to
also
tell you,
have-
I'm
no.
a fossil when I walk in that neighborhood.
No, wait. And then there's the catering facility at One Handsome Place.
Oh, yeah,
Isn't it?
right. Sort of
Which
like,
is like a Cipriani of,
Yes,
of Brooklyn.
they're
You
doing
have
pretty
to-
good. They have a lot of special events there.
I tell you, Brooklyn is the leader in all sorts of artistic and youthful energies. But I should also say, from the industrial base, I'm on the board of the Brooklyn Navy Yard, which has always a 99% occupancy, millions of unused industrial square feet. We're doing some buildings. We just did a green building on Perry Avenue. And there's a lot of exciting industrial and green developments going on in the Navy Yard.
Now, aren't you also having a new supermarket being built there?
Yes, that's right.
It was just recently announced. There's going to be a supermarket and industrial development at the Admiral's Row site.
Now, what about the Steiner Studios? I mean, Brooklyn has its own studios.
Steiner Studios is basically the anchor of the Navy Yard, and Doug and Steiner Studios is actually expanding from just having this, the studio to renovating an adjacent building, and we have a few projects in the mix with Steiner to expand.
And I don't think you can forget, I mean, and people from all over, Fairway. Fairway in Brooklyn is fantastic.
I wish we had several more fairways.
I mean, it would be great.
I'm talking to him.
Good. I pitch them all the time, too. I'm telling you.
But I can say more than we've
Get
talked
Fairway.
about a number of wonderful developments that are occurring right now in Brooklyn. But I think what we have to look to is what's going forward. There are great opportunities in Brooklyn. If you remember, my father-in-law, may he rest in peace, Ed Charno, had a pharmacy for 50 years or so on the corner of Greenpoint and Manhattan in Greenpoint, right by the train station, just a few short blocks in a very well-served community from the Greenpoint waterfront.
My father-in-law, let him rest in peace, had a drugstore on 13th Avenue.
You too? Yeah.
Right, and I will tell you, 13th Avenue, I cannot believe what has happened to Borough Park.
But listen to me, the
Borough
waterfront,
Park,
the waterfront,
you can't, they knock down the building, they build up something like that.
the waterfront in Greenpoint has huge potential for continuing growth of what is already the fourth largest city in America, Brooklyn.
Yeah, I tell you, one very exciting thing, which we're only in the early stages of, is the Brooklyn Greenway Initiative, which is going to be a 14-mile bike ride down the waterfront, and that is going to also, continue to activate the waterfront.
I could take,
and I just want to say my father-in-law is still alive.
To talk about Brooklyn with 30
Your wife will
minutes,
appreciate that.
30 minutes is
But he didn't run a
never
pharmacy.
enough time to talk about Brooklyn. But I'm happy that I brought the boys from Brooklyn, the people who are responsible for changing Brooklyn here today. I'd like to thank my good friend Marty Markowitz,
I just
David
want to
Kramer.
say thank you to all these three developers that have really made an investment in Brooklyn, and I'm very appreciative. Really, you represent some of the best we have in the borough. Seriously, thank
Marty
you very, very much.
Markowitz, David Kramer, Fred Harris, and never forget Jeff Levine. Next week, we're going to be talking about what's happening in Jersey City. See you next week.
Major funding for this program is made possible by grants from Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, and Perfect Building Maintenance, New York Community Bank, Kilroy Architectural Windows, Inc., New York's window company, Capital One Bank, Greenberg Traurig, LLP. Additional funding for this program is made possible by grants from AVR Realty Company, LLC, Briarwood Organization, Beechwood Organization, C.B. Richard Ellis, Cushman and Wakefield, Dime Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Hal Fettner, Durst Fettner Residential, First American Title Insurance Company of New York, F.J. Siami Construction, Friedman LLP, Gemini Real Estate Advisors LLC, Investors Savings Bank, Jack Jaffa and Associates Real Estate Consultants, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, Madison Realty Capital, Massey Knackle Realty Services, M&T Bank, Marcus and Millichap Real Estate Investment Services, Meridian Capital Group, The Moynihan Group, Margolin Weiner and Evans LLP, Newmark Knight Frank, Orphanides and Associates, SJP Properties, Sterling and Sterling Inc., Stonehenge Partners, Urban American, The Wickoff Group.